Welcome to OAA Now, your home for Oakland Activities Association news and information. Here's your host, Sammy Taramina.
Welcome to OAA Now. I'm Sammy Taramina, blogger of the Dragons Den, blogger from inside the OAA, and one of the whole between communities and oriented with television. I'd like to welcome our friends watching Oxford Community Television and also those watching on YouTube. Got an interesting show to talk to you about this week. Of course, we got football recaps. Of course, we're gonna look at also possibly what's going on at Clarkston surrounding, of course, Taylor Curry's decommitment, and of course our picks for week number 8 of the high school football season. But let's recap what's been going on throughout the high school football world. Of course, we have one coach on the verge of making history. Of course, when you look at John Harrington's record, he tied Alfred Casa last week with his big 17-14 win against Oak Park last week. That was very much stunning, to say the least. Also, we're going to talk about what is going on over at Farmington and why I think a coaching change really has to be needed for that program for them to be better off. And we look at, of course, we got other teams to talk about heading into the final 2 weeks of the regular season. But let's first talk about, mention Harrison. Of course, a lot of people ask me about Harrison. Everybody's very excited about the record that John Harrington tied Alfred Casa's record at 430. Should get a win this week against Berkeley, which will give him the all-time state winningest record in state football history. But let's go more in depth about the game. Let's look at what happened here. Harrison, they're not a deep team. They really aren't. And they ended up playing very well against Oak Park's wide receivers and basically made it a defensive game. So when you look at it, this was a matchup where Harrison's athletes, and of course they have an experienced quarterback in Noah Hendricks, got a chance to shine. And it was shocking to say the least, especially because Oak Park, they've been beating people pretty badly in the white lately, ever since their 24-7 loss to Utica Eisenhower. So what does that say about Harrison? It says a lot about describing this team, because Harrison's a team that really has, they're very good. There's no doubt about it. Even though they had that bad loss to East Kent to start the year off, then they had a heartbreaking loss to Groves. But Harrison right now, they're starting to play much better football. Whereas compared to Oak Park, they've been playing very well themselves ever since their loss to Utica Eisenhower. Now we gotta see how they respond against Troy, who I don't understand. Well, the Troy Colts is a whole different commodity when you look at them. Is Troy a playoff team, in my opinion? That's a question I'll go over in a minute. But when you look at Harrison, they're very close to getting back in the playoffs. And for Harrison, of course, last season, they're using the missed opportunity to get in the playoffs as a motivation. And that should be that way for John Harrington's team. And you look at what's going on around there, and it's basically surrounding that team, surrounding what is going on there with the lack of numbers. Of course, they don't have a freshman team this year, which is really disappointing. But, considering that's the school only has 2 more years left of existence, then they're going to close Harrison down, which I thought was a terrible decision by Plant Moran. But either way, I just think that Harrison right now, they're picking off right where they left off, and I think this is a playoff team for sure. They're not going to have any problem beating Berkeley, and then, of course, you have that crossover going up. But Harrison right now, looking pretty good for them. If I'm Oak Park, I'm fine. I'm not pressing any panic buttons. I'm not pressing anything like linked to the word panic. But this is kind of a setback for the Knights, especially in the offensive side of football. When you only score 14 points, that's not good. Harrison's a good team. There's no doubt about it. But, for Oak Park, to only score 17 points against a very good Harrison defense who's not deep at all, it's kind of concerning. When you look at, of course, the teams they might have to play in the very near future, like a Detroit Martin Luther King, who's been doing very well. They got a big game with Detroit Cass Tech this week in the Detroit Public School League playoffs. But for Oak Park, for them, if they want to be a state championship team, they've got to fix their offense. And I know Coach Greg Carter will fix that offense. Dwan Mathis is a good quarterback. They also got Corey Graham, as mentioned, of course. I think Mathis is the better of the two. But, when you look at the opportunity there, Oak Park I think Oak Park's just fine. Offensive line, they're fine. They got enough experience up front that can really help and take care of that situation regarding the Oak Park situation, how that unfolded there. So that's an interesting spot, to say the least, where to put a team like Oak Park, and I think Oak Park's going to be fine going forward in that direction there. Another game I want to talk about, of course, which really has me puzzled, is Bloomington Hills 23, Southfield Arts and Tech 22. This one to me was more of a shocker because, Southfield Arts and Tech, they're a team that are up 22-10 after 3 quarters. Weather was not the greatest, and, they had everything right where they wanted them. They had everything right where they wanted them. And then, they had John Paddock in bad conditions, and then they let him off the hook as Bloomington Hills scored 13 points to virtually steal that game from Southfield Arts and Tech on their version of their pink game, 23-22. So now what does that say about the Warriors and Tim Conley? Now, people are going to say, Southfield Arts and Tech's a good team. There's no doubt about that. But when you look at what Bloomington Hills has done, it just tells me their senior experience was the big difference in that game. It really was when you look at it here. Excuse me. It's a little cold this morning. Anyway, but Southfield Arts and Tech really has problems. And, when you look at the games the Warriors have been in, their losses, you got to look at the 2-point loss to Davison. You got to look at the loss to Clarkston. You got to look at the loss to Adams. I thought Adams, they were just totally destroyed by Adams. And then, of course, you got to look at, in this game with Bloomington Hills, they gave this game away. They gave it away. Then you got to look at the other games. You got to look at the Lake Orion game. Of course, the Lake Orion game, I thought the officials gave them that game in that one. But, but when you look at Southfield Arts and Tech, they've been living by the edge, and sometimes it benefits you, sometimes it doesn't. And for them to sit at 3-4, needing to win against West Bloomfield, basically to keep their playoff hopes alive, that's a tough task. And I think this is a program, a team that's in deep, deep trouble right now because of the fact that this is a team that's got, they've got some problems right now. They've got some problems controlling leads. They were up by 12 at home against Bloomington Hills, a team that, I didn't think is as good as people think. Now, Dan Laurie's done a good job with that team, their senior year, but 2018, I think Bloomington Hills is in a lot of trouble. But for Southfield Arts and Tech to lose that game says a lot. This is a team that's in a lot of trouble right now. They really are. And, and for them, it's very unfortunate. Yeah, now they had some players transfer out. Don't give me an excuse. This is still an athletic team. When you look at guys like John Darby, Matt Gilbert, you have Cameron McEvans. You have athletes who can definitely be playing, who could definitely play. You got Tim Conley back there. You got Vernon Burden, who's a very good assistant coach there. There's talent here at Southfield. It's just, it's looking more and more like it's a failed season over there. Really is. So that's something to look at. Now for Bloomfield Hills, another big win for them. And add South Arson Tech to their big wins, of course, adding to West Bloomfield. Do I think they're a first-round playoff exit team? Yeah, I really do. But it depends on the matchup. But Bloomfield Hills better be careful of Oxford this week. They really much better be careful of them this week. So basically, and then let's talk about another team here, the Troy Colts. Troy's an interesting story because here's a football team, changed coaches, Gary Griffin's out, Chris Frazier's in, and they have not missed a beat. They really have not. And the Troy Colts right now sit 5-2, looking real good to get in the playoffs. Now, they won't win this week. They're not going to win this week against Oak Park. You can forget that. But the game they need is their game against Troy Athens. Troy Athens has dominated Troy the last 3-4 years. So when you look at Troy's season, what's Troy's big win this year? What is it? It's Avondale. Obviously, it's Avondale. I mean, they've beaten the teams they're supposed to beat. They beat Stony Creek, Rochester, Seaholm. Seaholm very much injury prone this year. And, of course, Berkeley. That's 4 wins right there. And then Berkeley's the 5th one. But when they played against Harrison, Groves, Oak Park, they're going to get clobbered by Oak Park. But when they played Harrison Groves, they got destroyed. Well, the Groves game, they hung in there tough. I mean, they couldn't score against Groves. I don't know how they're going to score against some Oak Park. They ain't going to score against Oak Park. I'm sorry. And then, of course, it comes up that Troy Athens game. Troy Athens has been getting beaten up in the red this year. I mean, they've had to play Clarkson, Lake Orion, Oxford, Southfield Arts and Tech, West Bloomfield. I mean, my God. My God. It's been a long year for the Red Hawks. Really has. But for Troy, I view Troy as basically a team, and Avondale, when you look at Avondale, they're a decent team in the blue. I think they got a great chance sharing the blue with, depending if Ferndale wins this week against Hazel Park. But Avondale's a good win for Troy. But what I think really is hurting them is what's going to hurt them is the fact that you got to look at your resume. Your resume should count for something. And Troy right now really does not impress me. They really don't. They've got to, they have not beaten Harrison. They have not beaten Groves. They ain't going to beat Oak Park. But if they get in the playoffs at 6-3 and say a team like Southfield Arts and Tech and Lake Orion, who's been through a gaudy schedule like the way they've been playing, then what does that say about the league? What does it say? But, when you look at Avondale, of course, Avondale's got 3 losses right now. But Troy right now, I think they're the luckiest team right now to be benefiting from 5-2 season. Now, if they lose they're going to lose to Oak Park. There's no doubt about it. But if they lose to Troy Athens and miss the playoffs, then that's going to say a lot. I'm not a big believer in the Troy Colts right now, despite the fact they're 5-2. I think there are a lot of other teams that are better than the Troy Colts that are playing in tougher leagues. You look at if I put a game between Southfield Arts Tech and Troy right now, who wins that one? Southfield Arts Tech. If a game between Lake Orion and Troy plays, who wins that one? Lake Orion. If it's Oxford versus Troy, who wins that one? Oxford. That's pretty much simple. That's pretty much simple math here. So that's an interesting one there. If there's any team I think that needs to clean house, it's the Farmington Falcons. The Farmington Falcons. Now, people are going to ask me, why Farmington? Excuse me a minute. Oh, God. This cold's been bothering me. But anyway, a team that's in trouble, I think, is the Farmington Falcons. It's pretty simple why. Because we look at the Falcons. This is a team that's really they've got some problems when you look at this team. Now, I understand Corey Soroch is in his first year coaching this team, but this team's got big time problems. They have not gotten better. They have not gotten better. They are not playing well to the capabilities of their strengths. And their defense has not gotten better with the move down the blue. I mean, they've given up, they're about 280 right now, around there. They've allowed, ever since they went down the blue, they've allowed 45 to Avondale. They allowed 44 to Royal Oak, 42 to Ferndale, 37 to Ferndale, 42 to Highland Park, Chandler Park Academy, 28 to Berkeley. What does that say? What does that say? When you have high expectations on your program, now, yeah, you're going to say, well, Donovan King's out for the year. He's a big part of our team. Well, he is. But Donovan King was on that team when Farmington gave up a lot of points when they were playing white teams. So basically, then it comes to me is how the coaching situation's handled over there. Was Corey Soroch the right guy for the job? And by the looks of it, it looks like no, he was not. And it's because, they've really struggled. They've really struggled, and he's got some inter-program turmoil over there, to what I've been hearing. Rumblings are stating that, that there's been some disagreements between certain coaches on the in the staff. So this program's got big time problems right now. Really big problems. And it might not be getting any better with the program itself. I mean, in my blog the other day that I wrote about what program, when Harrison closes in 2 years, would be a better program. Would it be Farmington or would it be North Farmington? It's pretty simple. I think it's going to be North Farmington because they have a stable coach in Bob Chiazza who's done a really nice job despite the record over at North Farmington. I mean, I think the reason why North Farmington's struggling is because there's a lack of talent over there. They're getting good coaching, but I think there's a lack of talent up at North Farmington. And of course, when you look at the North Farmington situation, of course, Chiazza is a much proven coach than Corey Soroch right now is. I mean, people are going to view Soroch as probably more of a, he was John Bechtel's defensive coordinator. And, remember Bechtel's last season. It was not a good one. And has Soroch done anything different over there? It doesn't look like it to me here. Really doesn't. Because, they've got some problems. They've got to address them. They seriously have to address some problems surrounding that football program. I mean, you look at a program that needs to clean house. I think this is the program that needs to clean house in the worst way. And they really need to clean house. I mean, you're giving up over 40 a game against blue teams, against lesser enrolled teams. That's not good. That really is not a good thing. Probably when you look at the best games around the league, as mentioned, of course, we have Harrison, Oak Park, Boone Bay Hill, Southfield Arts and Tech. That was a good game there. But Adams and Clarkston. We're going to keep an eye on the Cole Petrino injury. Of course, he got hurt in that game against Clarkston. But Clarkston battled back, down 21-0, made it a game. Couldn't get through at the end. Good win for Adams. Adams looking really, really good right now. They're looking really good right now. So that's an interesting one for Adams. And, so we'll see where we'll see where their heads at. But Steve Ronselli dominated that game for Adams. Both sides of the ball. Of course, he plays linebacker. So we'll see what happens going forward in that one. We shall see. Okay, now when we come back, we're going to look at volleyball, look at boys basketball a little bit here on OAA Now.
Today, a new creature walks among us, terrorizing innocent citizens. Until this threat can be contained, we must all be on the lookout for the dreaded digital deadwalkers.
Dude!
They're not looking out for you.
Engage!
A public service safety message from the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons, who want to keep everyone well connected with strong, healthy bones.
Welcome back to OAA Now. I'm Sammy Tamina here. Of course, we're going to look at a lot of volleyball here and basketball news. Of course, a lot of boys basketball news regarding Taylor Curie at Clarkston. I mean, let's look at what's going on with this situation. And, of course, Taylor Curie on Twitter decommitted from Clarkston. Decommitted from Michigan. Of course, he said he will open his recruitment up for both the 2018 and 2019 class. The 2019 class is the one I really don't understand. And, this is what he said on his Twitter page. After careful consideration and discussing it with my family, I decided to decommit from the University of Michigan and open my recruitment for both the class of 2018 and 2019. In June, I committed to the University of Michigan because I grew up with the love for the school. However, since my commitment, I have learned more about the recruiting process and what factors should play in the decision. I want to thank Coach Beeline for giving me the opportunity to play at Michigan and for the support throughout this process. Here's a kid that was reclassified. This was a kid that was reclassified and to a senior this year. The MHA approved this. They did approve that he would be reclassified. Now, the rule does state, that he's still a senior, Then you're opening up a whole new can of worms if he decides to recommit and be himself as a junior. You open up a new can of worms there. This is still a basketball team. You got to look at what is going on surrounding their mess regarding Thomas Kitchener. And, of course, Kitchener came in from Macomb, Dakota, moved into Clarkston. And now you're opening up a whole new can of worms surrounding the Clarkston basketball program. I kind of do wish at times the MHA does look into Dan Fife's program. Now, yeah, Fife does have a clean program. There's no doubt about it. But look at all the transfers that came in. Look at all the people that came in that area. And you tell me that some of those kids are Clarkson kids. There are a few of them that are Clarkson kids. But others have came from different places. Let's look at on their team last year. You look at Dylan Austin coming up from Davidson. You look at a kid like, and then it all comes down to what Taylor Curie wants. I'm curious to see why he decommitted from Michigan, and he said he will open his recruitment up for both the 2018 and 2019 class. I thought personally that if you're in the 2018 class, you already given up your that claim to being a junior. You already given up that claim, and now you're saying you're going to try to get back and be in a situation where you want to be where you want to be a junior again. I don't know how it works out. I really don't, how the MHA is going to work this one out. But if he's already been reclassified. So, is it a question of, okay, you look at my two teammates, Foster Lawyer, Thomas Kitchen, both going to Michigan State. Could could it be a recruiting tool for Michigan State? I don't know. Really don't. I mean, but, you know, he decided to decommit from Michigan. I mean, and basically open up his commitment. But I just don't like the fact that he's looking at for the 2019 class because he's already been reclassified as a senior. And, you know, you look at his playing status, and the MHA is going to have to probably look into this. I know they're already looking at the Thomas Kitchener situation. I already know that. I mean, so that's a whole new can of worms around that program. So they've got some questions over there at Clarkson, the defending state champions. They got some questions. Now, yeah, you got Foster Lawyer, C.J. Robinson, Kip Wells back. You know, they're going to be, and of course, Trisha Meishan back. But, you know, but when you look at bringing kids in, you know, and a lot of this has a lot in common. Most of these kids, you know, played on Lawyer's AAU team down in Ohio. So it's interesting to see what is going on surrounding the situation surrounding Clarkson. So with Curie committing there, you know, Curie decommitting, you know, looking at his options for Michigan and looking at his options, you know what I mean? I know he said he's opening his recruitment for both classes, which probably means I think MHA is going to have to look into Curie's reclassification status. They're going to have to look into it. I mean, if they don't and he's reclassified as a junior, I'd be really disappointed. But we'll find out more as more information goes on surrounding Clarkson's boys basketball team. I mean, especially what's going on with Kitchener, and now what's going on with Curie. So it's very interesting how that development's folding up. Let's go to girls volleyball. Of course, Rochester Adams, they won a white championship, beating West Bloomfield. Now, we're going to preview the volleyball previews districts next week. So that'll be really interesting, to say the least. But when you look at Adams, of course, win the white championship against a team like West Bloomfield. West Bloomfield, I thought, would be more improved than they showed. But Adams is now 7-0. They finished 7-0 in the white division. You kind of had a feeling that it's their first league title since 2014 when they won the white. Then they went up the red, and we all know what happened there in the red. Never an easy thing to go up there and win games there. I know, but when you look at Adams, of course, they only have 3 seniors. I mean, Annabelle White, Paige Heelan, Olivia Gongles, all 3 of them play basketball. You know, Bridget Harding's done a really good job. They have really, really done a good job. And you look at a team like Adams, who, very young team. They've, however, do got to win against Stony Creek, which is huge. And they're in a district that's going to be a really tough district surrounding for them because they got to deal with Birmingham Marion and Bloomfield Hills in there. Now, Birmingham Marion right now looks to be the team to beat in that district. But Adams is a dangerous out. They really are. Because Rochester Adams is a team that really are playing with nothing to lose. You know, so I'm curious to see when they do the city championship tournament for the city of Rochester, when they involve their 4 schools. Of course, you have Adams, Rochester, Stony Creek, and Rochester Hills, Lutheran Northwest. That who will win the city championship? I still think it's going to be Stony Creek that's going to win it because I think Ross Talbot's got a really good team over there. But Adams could be a tough out. Rochester's an interesting team, even though Lauren Duquette's no longer there. Rochester Hills, Lutheran Northwest, a struggling team. But when you look at the strengths of this team, I mean, this is a team that's got some things to address. And Adams, though, despite their records, despite everything there, I mean, they could do some damage. They could seriously do some damage. And right now, the way they're rolling right now, Adams, they're more than capable of doing well, performing to the expectations, and doing very well. Another team to keep an eye on, of course, is in the red. Of course, it's the Troy Colts. The Troy Colts are an interesting team when you look at Jessica Robinson, Fran Alio. And of course, Kelsey Bowler. Those three girls are very good players for Tom Vigil's team. Troy's a team I think could be a team that's worth mentioning because, now, yeah, Seaholm's in that district as well. Seaholm's been playing much better as of late. But when you look at Troy, the Colts have really, they're going to be in a district at Troy Athens. They just swept Troy Athens. Of course, Troy Athens is a very young team this year. Of course, that they're having 10 seniors from last year's team and moving up to the red, which is never a fun thing to do. But the Troy Colts really, they're starting to get their act together. Their losses have been to some really good teams, really. So that's a team to keep an eye on, the Troy Colts. Really is. They got one more league game against Lake Orion on Thursday. Lake Orion's another one to mention. Of course, they've been really injury-riddled. Really injury-riddled. When you look at, of course, when you lose a Danielle Sargent to an ankle injury, you lose Paige Briggs to a back injury, and then you lose a Kendall Robinson who's awesome to deal with a bad back. Tony Scavardo's is injury-riddled. His depth's been severely tested this year. You could tell, in their losses, to Stony Creek and to Seaholm, where, there's some glaring weaknesses surrounding this team. There is. But it also has given those who have not played a lot an opportunity, a good look. I look at a girl like Riley Hunter, who's played really well for this team, since Briggs has went down. Or you look at, but this team needs to get healthy. And, and I think Lake Orion, now they took a little hit in the state rankings this week going from 4th to 6th. And, injuries, they're huge. Injuries are a huge thing. And in sports, especially in volleyball. And Lake Orion's got a lot of injuries right now. My concern is for this team is when they get to districts. Is, of course, when they see a team like Clarkston, who they're going to see, and you basically are going to say, okay, Lake Orion has to be a team where, they have to be fully healthy. And if they're fully healthy, Lake Orion's a much different team. Now, when they're not healthy, they're a much different team. And it showed in their losses, especially that loss to Seaholm, where they had to battle back from 2 games down and almost pulled it off, but couldn't do it. But at the end of the day, this is a good learning experience for this team. That, say, well, Lake Orion's a team that, when healthy, can be really, really good. And there's no doubt about it. They can be. So other teams to look at, of course, as mentioned, Clarkson as well. Clarkson, the way they're playing, Clarkson's a solid team. Clarkson's a team I think it could really do some damage in this tournament. But as mentioned, they got to go through Lake Orion. So, so if there's a team out there that could do some damage going forward, as mentioned, maybe an underrated team to keep an eye on, it's Bloomfield Hills. And Bloomfield Hills is a team I think it could really, Bob Hurdle's got that team starting to roll again a little bit. But Bloomfield Hills is a team I really think it could make some noise in this field. Even though they got to go through Birmingham, Marion, and Rochester Adams, but this is a team that really has to address some things. They really have to. And if they don't, then, then a team like Birmingham, Marion, who's played a much more tougher schedule than Bloomfield Hills, can go in there and just pull this team out in 3 games. The only thing I'm very concerned about with Bloomfield Hills is their schedule, because I don't think it played a lot of tough teams. I really don't think that. I think they're there to get wins, but I really am concerned about their schedule. So that's the thing I'm very concerned about going forward with this team. It really is. Could there be other teams that could surprise me? Yeah. I mean, you look at possibly a Ferndale or Hazel Park. You know, Hazel Park, very experienced team, as mentioned. So we'll see what they got. We shall see what they got. I mean, that district over at Detroit Renaissance is very favorable. I mean, I don't think the Phoenix are wow beaters. I really don't. But we'll see. But I think there's a good chance that Hazel Park or Ferndale could come out of there and do some I mean, Ferndale, of course, is in Class B. Is in a district in Class B. Pontiac, I just don't think I got no chance in Class B with Pontiac Northern Prep in there. I really don't. But Ferndale, I think, got a good shot. Depending if they get back Clawson. I mean, Clawson's a very good team. There's no doubt about it. I think Ferndale's going to have their hands full with them. But when you look at Hazel Park, this is a team I think could do some damage. I mean, now they're up in class, so this is going to be really interesting to see what happens to them going forward. So we'll see what happens for them. My final thoughts on volleyball, and of course, we're keeping an eye on the boys' basketball situation surrounding Clarkson Wolves. But there's a couple other teams to keep an eye on in boys' basketball. There's no doubt. We'll keep an eye on them as we get into the early season previews for both girls and boys basketball going forward. And we'll also, next week, we're going to preview the girls volleyball districts. Of course, that's going to be really interesting to see what happens there. So we'll see what happens there heading forward in that one. Okay, now when we come back, we're going to preview the Week 8 matchups for football here on OAA Now.
Vision loss is not something that you feel until it happens.
Most people lose their vision from diseases like macular degeneration and glaucoma, not at birth.
3 million Americans have glaucoma, and half don't even know it.
11 million people in the United States have macular degeneration.
So many eye disorders can be treated if caught early.
Make a plan today to get your eyes checked.
Visit brightfocus.org to learn more.
Welcome back to OAA Now. I'm Sammy Timmy here. We're going to do some picks for this week's Week 8 slate of the football season. Of course, soccer districts start up on Monday, so you can take a look at my soccer previews and projections on the Inside the OAA blog. I will be doing a column on that later on today or tonight. I mean, so we'll see what happens there going forward surrounding the soccer previews. I really think Troy Athens is a great shot at getting to the state final. Again, for a second straight, you're going to keep an eye on Adams, Stony Creek, Rochester, despite the fact they're all in the same district. So, so we'll see what happens going forward surrounding the soccer previews for boys soccer. So next week, so this week's episode of football here, picks for Week 8, of course. There's some key games here. We'll go over some of those key games, of course, later on in the show. Of course, there's a couple big ones surrounding them. Of course, the blue matchup with Ferndale Hazel Park. We'll preview that one, along with that is probably the big matchup surrounding Week 8 is Ferndale and Hazel Park. So that and that has a lot of big game implications surrounding that one. Let's look at our first game. Of course, it's in the blue division. It's going to be Macomb Lutheran North taking on Royal Oak. Macomb Lutheran North's not a bad team. I mean, the way they played, I really like how Macomb Lutheran North they've improved. I mean, they're a football team that really has set some things. They're taking on a Royal Oak team that they've really a Royal Oak team they've really improved. I mean, they had a nice bounce back against Farmington the other day. But I just think that when you look at a team like Macomb Lutheran North, of course, Macomb Lutheran North, they come in at 3-4 though, but they've lost 3 straight games against Royal Oak, but they've lost them all close. Of course, including last week, they lost to Cranbrook Kingswood. It was not a good score, but I think it's going to be very interesting. Royal Oak's a very improved team. I mean, I think that at the end of the day, Royal Oak is going to be a team that could do some damage. And I think Royal Oak will win this game against Macomb Lutheran North. And, and Royal Oak, they're trying to get the playoffs. I mean, they got 2 big non-league games coming up. Of course, this one, and of course, I think they play Monroe Jefferson to close out the year. So Royal Oak right now, I think for them to win, they have to win these final 2 games. It's at 4-3. But they're going to have to do much better defensively if they're going to do some damage going forward in this one here for Coach Ray McMahon and his team. So in this matchup here, I think I'm looking at here is, can Royal Oak's defense stop Macomb Lutheran North? That's the question there heading into that matchup. And can the Royal Oak offense keep improving on the scoring output they did last week? Of course, the last 2 games, Royal Oak has scored 31 against Ferndale, and then, of course, last week, 44 against Farmington. That's a start for Coach Ray McMahon's team. I think Carter Ellis, their quarterback, is finally starting to get it, and I think that's a huge, huge way for Royal Oak to go forward with that team. So, so it's an interesting dynamic for Royal Oak. I mean, they're sitting in a nice spot right now. I really do believe that heading in their match with Macomb Lutheran North in that one there. This next matchup here, it's a rivalry matchup. It's Pontiac taking on Avondale. It's hard for me to say here in this matchup. I feel bad for Pontiac, the way that they've been going through a lot this year. Haven't scored a lot of points, getting up a ton of points. I mean, and of course, folding their freshman and junior varsity programs. I mean, it's been a really tough road for Charles Tolley and his team. I mean, and they're playing an Avondale team who I think is going to be just really on a serious. They did not look good last week against Cincinnati Lincoln, where they lost 35-14, where they were just tortured. And there's nothing you can say about it. There's really nothing you can say about what happened here. And, it's hard for me to describe what happened and, to Avondale. But, for Avondale, now they got to win out. And basically, when you look at the Avondale schedule, they sit at 4-3. They're in a really tough spot. Of course, Avondale, when you look at their schedule, they have to play this week. They got to play. They have Pontiac, and then the next week, of course, they got another tough game. So when you look at they got another tough game when you look at the Yellow Jackets slate. So Avondale right now has got they're a very interesting team to keep an eye on. I mean, they got Pontiac this week. I mean, they did not look good against Cincinnati Lincoln. I mean, that says a lot when you look at, of course, what happened to this team. And they close out the year against Macomb Lutheran North, which is I think a winnable game for them. I really think it's a winnable game for them. And for Avondale, I think they got to win out these next 2 games. I think they're going to beat Pontiac. I think they're going to beat Macomb Lutheran North and get in the playoffs. I really do. So Avondale and Pontiac, I think Avondale will win this one pretty convincingly against Pontiac. I think at the end of the day, the difference is going to be Avondale's athleticism and depth is going to wear Pontiac down, and it's going to be really interesting to see at least what happens there in that one. Next game we got on the slate is North Farmington taking on Farmington. This week game we played at North Farmington. It's been a rough year for both these teams for different reasons. North Farmington trying to put together a program under Bob Chiazza. I just don't think the talent's there over at North Farmington right now. I think a complete rebrand of the product is in order over there at North Farmington. Getting rid of the uniforms and all that fun stuff. But the coaching situation there, I think, is more stable at North than it is at Farmington, because when you look at Farmington's situation, that program is an absolute mess. When you look at, of course, the under programs there, and of course the current group product over there at Farmington, that is a complete and absolute mess over there with Corey Soroch over there. Their defense has not been good. They've been giving up a ton of points. They got talent, but I think coaching there has not been the greatest. So when you look at analyzing this matchup here, a coaching standpoint, you got to give an edge to North Farmington here. Talent perspective, you got to give an edge to Farmington here. I mean, Farmington, and there is a trophy here on the line called the Farmington Cup. Of course, it's the equivalent of a Lake Orion, for example, Lake Orion Oxford Double Trophy or Troy versus Avondale, where they have an Oaken bucket on the line there for that game. But when you look at that matchup, I just think that talent-wise favors Farmington. But if it comes down to a coaching versus coaching matchup, which I think it could very well happen here, I think it's going to be a really much a I think Kiaza's got it right there, but I'm just very, very concerned about the lack of talent that North Farmington has. Now, yeah, they got some talent, but they've been experiencing the losing culture there for a long time. I mean, like, lately, of course, and I know Kiaza's been trying to fix that program. Farmington, that's a whole other mess. But I think North Farmington, if they can pull up this win against Farmington, get that Farmington Cup, imagine how Bob Kiaz is going to feel. It'll be a great feeling for them. But for Farmington, of course, this is for them. It's about retaining the cup, getting the talent, you know what I mean? Because, when you look at next season, when Harrison closes, how are these kids going to decide what product's there? So in this game, I'm going to take North Farmington, being at home, having, I think, the better coach in Bob Chiazza. I think Chiazza is going to badly outcoach Corey Soroch in this matchup. And I think North Farmington should be up ready to play in this match. It's a city rivalry. And I think it's going to be and I think this is going to be a stepping point to the future for Bob Chiazza's team, to see where they're at in the city and prove to everybody in Farmington that North Farmington's trying to build a program here, build a culture, and you got to wonder if North Farmington, what will happen to Farmington if they lose this game to North Farmington, because there's already enough pressure on Soroch right now on this program, but it could be much, much worse if he loses this game, considering that Farmington's got more talent than North Farmington, considering that they got some program issues that Soroch has to fix. So, and it's really difficult to see what happens if Farmington loses this game to North Farmington. It will be really, really difficult there. Next up on the play is Harrison and Berkeley. Now, I mentioned earlier on the podcast that this is a perfect match for John Harrington to break Alfred Costa's record. He's going to do it this week. I say he's going to do it this week because Berkeley, not the greatest team, but I think the Bears will put up a fight in this matchup, though. But I just think at the end of the day, I think John Harrington's going to get a big-time win here, break the record. The win against Oak Park is just mind-boggling, to say the least, for this team. It really is. Because the win against Oak Park is huge. Not an easy thing to do. And this is a big win. That was a big win last week against Oak Park. This win's going to get Harrison in the playoffs. I think that's what John Harrington's mostly concerned about instead of the record. So, with this Hawk team going forward, Harrison could do some damage if they're in the right division. They're in D3. I think it could do some damage, especially with Orchard Lake St. Mary's not being in the playoffs. So this will be a very interesting where they put Harrison in the playoffs. I think Harrison gets in this week, beats Berkeley. I think they blow them out this week at Farmington Hills Harrison with Berkeley. So we'll see what happens to them going forward. But I do like Harrison and John Harrington to get to break his state record this week. So it's be very interesting to see what happens there in that one. Stony Creek and Rochester. This one's interesting because you look at that matchup there. It was last year Stony Creek took out Rochester's playoff hopes. Now Rochester's a little bit down. Their quarterback's out for the year. Stony Creek's won 3 straight games. Bob Lancey's got that team going up right now, and I think they're going to get a win this week against Rochester. I like the Cougars right now, the way they're playing. Bob Lancey's got that team playing. Of course, they've got improved offensive line play, which I criticized early in the year for quarterback Frank Patasma. Rochester, not the greatest defense. I mentioned in my previous show about Rochester's defense. I was not sold on their defense. I still am not, but I like Rochester in this. I like Stony Creek to knock off Rochester. It's at home for Stony Creek, so it's going to help them going forward in that matchup there. Another matchup here to mention here, of course, Troy Oak Park is mentioned earlier. I think Oak Park's going to blow out Troy. I think the big game for Troy is going to be next week when they take on Troy Athens for a chance to get in the playoffs. Oak Park's going to blow them out this week. Adams, Troy Athens, that matchup here, I just think Adams is going to blow out Troy Athens. It'd be kind of nice to be easier slate for the Highlanders. Of course, they do play Stony Creek next week, who is really improved in that matchup. So I can see 2 blowouts right there in those 2 games. A trap game I've been looking at is Bloomfield Hills and Oxford. The reason why this one was a trap game is because Bloomfield Hills go to Oxford. Oxford, not the deepest team. They lost last week to Lake Orion 31-14. But, Bloomfield Hills is a team that relies a lot on John Paddock's arm to carry him. He was very instrumental in the game with Southfield last week. For Parker Fleming, I really think he's got to improve on his accuracy in this matchup. Of course, I didn't think he was accurate against Lake Orion at all in that game. But, for Oxford, time possession football, I think Oxford's going to score points against Bloomfield Hills. I think they're the more physical team here in this one. And I think Paddock will get some throws in there, but I'm picking the upset here. I think Oxford going to somehow sneak up and beat Bloomfield Hills because of time possession football and power football. They play that power football down the strength. And let's not forget, Lake Orion did have some success against Bloomfield Hills in the passing game in the run game against Bloomfield Hills. So, you can run on these guys. I think it's going to be a difference maker here, and I think Bloomfield Hills, and not forget Bloomfield Hills going up to Oxford, so that's not going to be an easy match there. But I think that's my best bet for an upset right there is that Oxford Bloomfield Hills game. So that'll be very interesting to see what happens there. Another possible upset trap is Clarkson. I mean, we're not sure where Clarkson's head's at. It's their homecoming game against Lake Orion. I mean, Lake Orion's not beaten Clarkson since 2010. I mean, Lake Orion's got a lot of this is a football team that's got nothing to lose when you look at Lake Orion. Of course, Clarkson's got a lot to lose this week. So when you look at this one, that's another upset trap. That's another upset trap to keep an eye on. It's Lake Orion and Clarkson. That's another one to keep an eye on for sure. The Battle of Birmingham, that's also another upset trap because Seaholm's been battling injuries all year. Groves, of course, Groves going to Birmingham, Groves going to the Maple Forest. It's never an easy game. I think Groves is more talented than Seaholm, but Seaholm, I think, has got more experience and they've been injury prone. So that's another game I think to keep an eye on the upset bug. So in that matchup here, I think Groves will win, but it wouldn't surprise me if Seaholm wins. So that's going to be a really interesting match, to say the least there. I do like Seaholm. I do like Groves to win that game, but Seaholm's going to put up a fight, that's for sure, in that matchup, no doubt. And then, of course, we have West Bloomfield, Southfield Arts and Tech. In that matchup, I think that West Bloomfield will win this game because I think that even though it's at Southfield, I think it'll be a shootout. But I just think that West Bloomfield more talent on the field. Especially their air attack. I think that's going to be a difference maker in that game. It's going to be their passing attack, which is going to be the difference maker in that one. And then, of course, we'll preview the big one of the week around the league. It's Ferndale at Hazel Park. And this matchup is very interesting because when you look at this one here, and this is an interesting match of how this is going to be played out. It's Ferndale's high-octane offense against Hazel Park's really good defense. I mean, Gary Griffin has came over from Troy to coach at Hazel Park. I mean, he's done a really good job surrounding that team's defensive mindset. Hazel Park's got experience, but so does Ferndale. When you look at Ferndale, their offense, when you look at Deshaun Smith, Zoser Little, Anthony Merriman, I mean, their line is not bad either. I mean, yeah, Ferndale's got 30 kids. I mean, Ferndale, of course, with their co-op program, Ferndale University. Of course, Ferndale's a very interesting story when you look at them. I mean, you know, I wrote a column on Ferndale, and, you know, I said, you know, and of course, Ferndale, they're rolling right now. The way they're playing, you know, they're 12-4 since making the play. This is the 2016 season. I mean, a lot of that has to go to the co-op program. Yeah, most of the talent's from Ferndale, but they have about 2 starters maybe from Ferndale University. I mean, when you look at this matchup at the end of the day, I mean, this is for the Blue Championship. This is what Ferndale's been talking about all year long, is we want to win the Blue Championship. This is your chance. I don't think the loss to Avondale has not helped. I mean, did not help things. I mean, Hazel Park's been undefeated in the blue, but they got 2 non-league losses to Warren Fitzgerald and the Clintondale. So, in this matchup here, I think if it comes down to Ferndale's offense against Hazel Park's defense, I've got to go with the defense here in this matchup. I mean, now, yes, the game's at Ferndale, but Ferndale's offense will score. The question will be is, can Hazel Park's offense score against Ferndale? That is the million-dollar question. And that's a question, though. I usually go defense with Hazel Park, but I think, you know, at the end of the day, I think Ferndale will win this game. And the reason why Ferndale will win this game is they're at home. They have talent. They have experience. I mean, this is a team that really's got some momentum going for them. If they win the Blue Championship, it's a heck of an accomplishment for Coach Eric Royal and his team. But also, you got to give Ferndale, the community there, a lot of credit. I mean, Ferndale's a team that they've really improved. I mean, now last year in the playoffs, they were up in Division II, having to play the likes of the eventual state champion, Detroit Martin Luther King, and they ended up losing that game. But, you know, why I think they're rolling right now is they're playing loose. They're playing very well right now. And that's how football is supposed to be. When you play loose, you play well. I mean, things are going to happen, and good things for you. Now, Ferndale, since 2008, was 22-41. Now, since they're 12-4, that's a heck of an accomplishment there for Eric Royal's team. But for them, the key part of the game with Hazel Park is going to be is, can they score on Hazel Park's defense, and can Hazel Park's offense score against Ferndale's defense? That's the million-dollar question. I think that's going to be answered heading into Friday's games as we go forward in time. So we'll see what happens going forward surrounding that matchup there. Final thoughts this week, of course, we'll see what happens going forward. Of course, we're going to preview the volleyball districts on our we're going to preview them coming up. Of course, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. Of course, volleyball districts only 2 weeks away, so it'll be very interesting to see what happens there as we go forward toward the end of the month, and we shall see what happens previewing each district. So we shall see what happens there going forward there. Okay, now everybody, I'm going to sign off here. Of course, you can stay up to date with the blog, stay up to date with the news around the OAA or on my blog at Inside the OAA at sammysemicolon@blogspot.com. And of course, a lot of news going around the league. So we'll see what happens going forward as we head into the end of the fall season, heading into the state playoffs, and of course previewing the volleyball playoffs and also the soccer playoffs. So we'll see what happens going forward on each of the processes there. Okay, now I'm going to sign off here. Everybody take care, y'all, and see y'all next week, everybody. Goodbye, everybody.
OAA Now is produced at Orion Neighborhood Television, Lake Orion's community media outlet. To learn more about ONTV, visit our website at www.orionontv.org or call us at 248-393-1060.